Poverty is more than being poor. Poverty is a symptom of the brokenness of the world that we live in. Poverty is suffering that comes as a result of being part of the human race. Poverty here in this part of the world is very specific. It looks like families who live in houses that they've made out of bits of trash that they found on the side of the road. It looks like kids who grow up playing in the dirt because they don't have toys to play with. It looks like families who don't have access to health care or basic necessities or hygiene. But those things are all symptoms of a reality that the world that we live in is very broken, that it is not as it should be. And so poverty is much bigger than being poor, but certainly this is this is what it looks like here.
Yo tenía 9 años viviendo en la orilla de las vías del ferrocarril. Yo tenía 9 años en un movimiento y en una lucha por la legalidad de los terrenos o la regularización de los terrenos o una reubicación.
Pues el tiempo que hemos estado aquí en el terreno, la verdad sí nos estábamos viendo muy feos porque pues no hay ni agua, no había agua y el viento se nos metía, el frío por las paredes y la verdad sí estaba un poco feo la situación.
So my parents started Amor Ministries in 1980. My dad went on a day trip down to an orphanage in Tijuana where my mom was working and spending a lot of time volunteering, and she had actually spent a year there. And he went down for the day and basically fell in love with these kids who had rice and beans and tortillas for dinner. They slept 5 to a bed and had a bathroom, and they prayed and sang songs to God in a way that he had never heard. And at the end of the day, it just didn't make sense to him. So really, at the end of the day, God disrupted his life on that first trip, and my parents met during that first trip. And when my dad went home, he couldn't help but start trying to find ways to help out these kids, get food to them, get clothing to them, get blankets to them. And one thing led to the next. They started working with the orphanage and working with these kids that were actually coming from families, for the most part, that were coming from the dump in Tijuana. Their parents were around but just couldn't take care of them, so they wanted their kids to be in this orphanage where they would at least get food, they'd have shelter, and they would have bathrooms. And they started to think, okay, what can we do for these families? What can we do to help these families stay together and help these kids be with their families? Because at the end of the day, the kids didn't want to be at an orphanage. They wanted to be with their families. They wanted to be with their parents. And so Amor developed out of that, and the first houses that were built for families in the dump to keep children with their families and keep families together was in 1980.
Yeah, so it was really, really cool. Just about a year ago, the city of Puerto Peñasco actually decided to do something about the issue of squatters living right on the railroad tracks. And the two issues with that is, one, it's incredibly dangerous to live right on the railroad tracks, and also it's illegal to live within so many meters of the railroad tracks. So these families who had no land of their own, no place to live, just decided, hey, nobody's living on this land, it's free, we're just going to squat here until somebody makes us leave. But rather than, like many city governments, even in America would do, let alone Mexico, instead of just kicking them off and saying, good luck with your lives, they're actually invested in these people and in the standard of living. And so they bought a large chunk of land on the northwest part of town and have sold it to these families at a discounted price so that each family can actually own a piece of land. And since we have been building in Peñasco for over 20 years now, we've developed a great relationship with the city government, and so they actually came and approached us about building homes for these families out in this community. And so we agreed to absolutely help them out with that and build. Each family still goes through the application process like any other family in Peñasco would do. But if they're approved, then we will build a home for them, and I want to say we've built at least 40 or 50 homes out in that area within the last year. It started out as a community of people that had little, if nothing, and now they have not only a piece of land that is their own, they are landowners, but they are also homeowners, which is incredible because a lot of these families, whatever wood, plywood, pallets they could find, they would just throw together, and their floor would just be the beach sand that's laying around. So now they have a concrete foundation which cuts down on sickness, bacteria, and just improves their standard of living and their health immensely. So it's incredible to see a city government be that invested in the standard of living for its citizens.
Pues como los últimos años es una experiencia bien bonita. A pesar de ser físicamente muy agotador, sentimos la fuerza, la fortaleza que nos da el Señor para realizar ese trabajo tan duro que no estamos acostumbrados a hacerlo día a día. Sentimos su fuerza, sentimos su energía, sentimos su paz, sentimos su gozo. Entonces es una experiencia que no la podemos compartir, yo creo, tan fácilmente con las palabras. Pero es una bendición bien grande el estar aquí.
Well, we, of course, travel for thousands of hours to get here, over almost 1,000 miles, and we set up our camp. Then the next morning we go out to the locations where the team Amor takes us, and we meet our families. We figure out exactly where the sites are, kind of get a plan of attack, and we have different teams that specialize in different areas of the work. We have concrete teams who do the heavy, hard work on the first day of building the forms and then pouring the concrete. While that's going on, we have other teams, a little more skilled laborers, I guess, who do the framing of all of the walls and the roof units and the different pieces and parts of the house. They work all day on the first day to get all of those things done. When we leave on the first day, the concrete is poured, it is drying in its forms, and all of the walls are neatly stacked on the property of the owner, waiting for us to come back the next day. We go home, we die. Then we wake up early the next morning. This is the most amazing day to me, the second day, because we hit ground, and before lunchtime, we have the entire frame raised on the foundation, and the roof panels are on, and the roof is being covered with a fabric membrane product that makes it waterproof. At the same time, all of the preparations are going on that help us to finish the house on the outside, to begin to stretch baling wire around the house once it's rigid and braced. And that baling wire becomes the backing for tar paper that goes on next, which is quite fun to install in wind. Once the tar paper is securely installed, then chicken wire goes up around the entire outside of the house, which makes the base for the stucco that we will attack later that day. Once the roofing is pretty much done and all of the exterior preparations are finished, we put on a first coat of stucco, and then we clean up everything, go back to camp, die again. We get up way too early the next day, and we do the last coat of stucco, and any final touches that remain. And then we have a wonderful time with the families of dedication, handing off the keys to the house. Just a remarkable time. And really maybe that's one of the highlights of the trip, I think, is when you see in these people's eyes the joy that they have been given something that is so incredibly impossible for them to have or to attain, and yet it has come. And that really is the definition of grace, isn't it?
Amor gave me an example of what church life is supposed to be like, of what being a Christian is supposed to be like. You're supposed to be out doing things, out serving people. It's not about what you get from God or from other people. It's about what you give to other people and the way you serve God through your life. And so, in a lot of time, there was a certain period in my life where I was struggling with the church. What's the church supposed to be about? And I even thought about stopping going to church and even possibly not being a Christian, because I was wrestling with, like, what is this Christian life supposed to be like? And I felt God very clearly pointing me back to Amor and the way I had grown up.
A mí me gusta mucho trabajar con los niños. Hace muchos años, cuando yo terminé high school, mi mamá me dijo que yo estudiara para ser maestra con los niños, trabajar con los niños. Yo le dije que no, que yo no quería saber nada de niños. Todas nuestras familias son familia de maestros. Yo le dije que yo no quería saber nada de niños. Cuando nos fuimos al colegio bíblico a estudiar, desde el primer año que estuvimos estudiando, yo estaba trabajando con los niños, he estado trabajando con los niños. Tengo alrededor de 18 años trabajando con los niños y ha sido un ministerio que el Señor me ha puesto siempre en sus manos, y me encanta venir a trabajar con ellos en mi país porque me entienden muy bien el idioma. Ellos se aprenden muy bien los cantos, los coritos, y para mí es algo bien bonito compartir la palabra del Señor con los niños.
I take away, like, more of how to, I don't know, like how to love people and how to, like, appreciate what I have.
I take away hope, because all the people here are so hopeful and so happy with what they have, and I think that there's hope that, like, poverty can be broken.
After the trip, I felt like I got a huge slap in the face because I realized that not everybody has the opportunity to live like I do, and it kind of made me, like, I don't know, I don't understand how I get to live the way that I do and they don't. Like, I didn't do anything to deserve it.
Construir esta casa para Leslie, gracias porque
you know, it just kind of leave part of your heart there, because we're not wealthy families, but they're just extremely, extremely poor. So I feel sorry for them, but yet they don't really want pity or sympathy. They live well with what they have, they just don't have anything. And we live well with what we have, and we want more.
Tell him she's super cute.
So he came into the world that he made in order to rescue it from its brokenness. And because he is this type of God, we are this type of people. We go into the world with a desire to heal the brokenness of the world. Our desire is to restore broken hearts and broken lives to a God who loves them. And we believe that he's working through us to accomplish that. This is a very small part of what God is doing in the world, a microscopic part of what God is doing in the world, but it's the part that he's called us to for this week. And we are happy to be a part of it. Missions is important because God is missional.
Muy bien. Yeah, sí.
Como un rayo de luz, como una oportunidad que uno no espera, o que está esperando y que no sabe cuándo llegar, pero sabemos que está ahí. Pues la verdad que las gracias, darle muchísimas veces las gracias, porque en verdad que fue una gran ayuda la que nos hicieron. Y
pues muchas gracias, le doy muchas gracias a Dios y a Ministerio Amor, que fui una de las familias beneficiadas, fue una de las familias bendecidas por esta fundación, y darle las gracias que a través de ellos han bendecido a muchísimas personas aquí en Puerto Peñasco que en verdad necesitan de una vivienda, que en verdad no tienen muchas veces para tener una vivienda digna para ellos y para sus hijos. Y gracias por seguir viniendo a bendecir más familias.
The definition of hope, I think, is you have the ability to see beyond what is. You have the ability to dream that there can be something better and something bigger and something more. It's the ability to not despair in spite of desperate circumstances. And I think a lot of the people that I see in third world countries have almost no hope. To be able to come to a place like this and do something tangible that can change their lives so radically, it maybe is a reward for their hope. Maybe it is an answer that will let them know that they can continue to hope for things that are bigger and better even in the future.
One of the best stories I know is from my dad. He was working with a group down here in Tijuana, I think it was, and he was working with this group all week. These kids were running around, and at the end of the week when they finished the house, they did the key ceremony where they hand over the keys and they kind of celebrate the family. And the woman of the house came up to my dad and brought out a picture. It was a picture of a little baby. And my dad looked at the picture and he said, "Oh, is this one of the children running around?" And she said, "No, this is my baby. And just before you guys came down here, it rained. And so my baby got too cold, she got sick, we got her to the hospital, but she ended up dying." And I want to give you this picture because I want you, whenever you're wondering whether or not you should build houses anymore, I want you to look at this picture and think to yourself, I can't stop building houses because there's children that need a house like this.